What's going on, guys? Zain here with Everything Vive. I want to welcome you back for another episode. As usual, I'm joined by Ronnie. Ronnie, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Finally back here. So, how are you?
I'm doing good. I just want to apologize to the listeners. I know we did not have an episode last week, and that was unfortunately due to a family emergency for you, so schedules did not align. But hoping everything is going all right for you and your family now, man.
Yeah, no, it's another week, I guess. So, but yeah, thanks for the kind words.
No problem. So, well, let's go on to a lighter topic and talk VR. How about that?
Yeah, let's go. What's on the agenda for today?
So what's on the agenda? We got some news. Well, just one real main news item, and then we'll go into game talk, which I'm excited to get into today. Before we do that, though, this is the first episode of August, and we are giving away that $20 Steam gift card. So our randomly drawn winner for this week is, and drum roll, please. Okay, I had it saved on my phone, but now it's not. Well, this is awkward.
Just about everything tonight has not been working as planned.
It's been a rough day.
Literally right before we got on this call, my computer just shut down and will not reboot. I have no idea why.
Yeah, you were saying it was a motherboard issue, right?
I'm guessing either that or the power supply. It's really strange. I really have no idea what could have happened. It just randomly turned off, and now it's not turning back on. So, like I said, in all the years that I've been messing with computers, I've never seen this happen like this, just because I didn't really change anything, and it just randomly stopped working. So I'm going to have to – I'm used to, messing with stuff and then causing problems, but when you're not really doing anything, it's kind of a little bit unnerving, but we'll see. After that, I have a spare power supply that I can try to see because right now there's literally no lights, nothing that's turning on. So, and I switched, I moved the computer and tried using a different power cable, and it's still not doing anything. And I tried, so we'll see.
All right. Well, good luck. I mean, for someone like me, whenever my computer stops working, I usually call someone like you. So I feel like you're the right person for the job. But okay, enough with the digression. I apologize, guys. I have the name now. So the randomly drawn winner for the month of August is Najim Yakubs, and so we will be shooting you an email to let you know that you've won and to give you all the Steam gift card that you deserve. And for those who want to enter, this is an ongoing giveaway that we do. It's the beginning of every month, the first episode of every month. All you got to do is leave a you got to leave a review on iTunes, take a screenshot of it, and send it to contact@everythingvive.com. And actually, let me clarify that. Not just iTunes, we are accepting Stitcher now. So if you leave a review on Stitcher, you can go ahead, take a screenshot, send it to contact@everythingvive.com. There are some instructions in the show notes. My goodness, this is going to be a rough episode, Ronnie. I
already feel it. I felt it before we started recording. I'm feeling it even more now. It's just one of those things. I'm just looking forward to the weekend, to be honest with you.
Me too. All right. Well, let's power through. We do have some good news, and that is regarding the main news item for today, which is about TPCAST, and it's been radio silence for the most part when it comes to wireless solutions. I really have not heard much, except in the last week. I saw some articles popping up online about TPCAST, which was I think the front runner for a lot of those different solutions that were out there. I think they were working directly with HTC, but now we're finding out that the TPCAST, I guess both the transmitter and the battery pack were approved by the FCC. So it sounds like if they were waiting on approval, that is what was causing the delay to ship here in the U.S. Because obviously we've been hearing reports about that out in China. Neither Ronnie or myself have got our hands on one, but from the reviews that we've seen from other people posting, it does seem to work very well, actually, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to get my hands on that as soon as it gets stateside. So that being said, what are your thoughts? Have you heard anything else on wireless solutions? Like I said, for me, this is the first that I've heard in quite a while.
Yeah, no, same. And I mean, it's one of those things. I feel like some of the momentum in the recent weeks have been towards the standalone sets that are starting to kind of pop up here and there. And I know you and I kind of briefly mentioned, the fact that HTC is going to be working on a standalone product in China. So I think some of the momentum has gone towards some of those kits, but for all of those users out there that have current Vives and we're all really excited about the wireless solutions and I can't wait to see, once it does get released here, how easy it's going to be to set up and all of that. I'm definitely really excited about it. So.
Yeah, no, me too. I've been thinking about it recently though. And not that I do as much research or I do as much research around Oculus stuff, but I have not heard anything in regards to like a wireless solution for Oculus. And I know that some of the third-party ones that were coming out would be compatible for both. But, with Facebook announcing just, you were alluding to a lot of the standalone headsets that they've mentioned. With Facebook announcing a $200 headset coming out next year, I'm wondering if the Rift is also already like something that's like outdated for them, and they're no longer going to be focusing on it as much. You know what I mean? If that new $200 headset is going to be their primary focus, or you know what I mean? Like, it's just I'm curious to see where this wireless solution is going to go. But I mean, do you have any thoughts? Like, I feel like we're still maybe at least a good year. No, I'd say 2 years before Gen 2 really starts to, or at least the talks for Gen 2 really start to heat up. Because, the president of HTC was talking about a product life cycle. He didn't mention years, but it would be between consoles and between smartphones. So I think we were generally looking, about the 3-year mark would be the average, or like kind of the in between. So with it coming out in 2016, or, with the Vive coming out in 2016, well, actually both consoles coming out in 2016, it being 2017 now, we're not expecting anything next year in terms of like a Gen 2. I feel like that might be 2019 or 2020. But, I'm just curious if like they're just going to wait to have the wireless kind of be part of that next. Yeah, and I'm talking strictly Facebook and Oculus right now, and not HTC, because obviously, TPCAST is still coming out and is a big thing. And I think for everybody who has a sunk cost in Gen 1, we all want TPCAST, unless the new headset will be considerably cheaper and just as good. I think we'd all probably want to get our hands on TPCAST, at least in the next couple months.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I mean, as far as Facebook, I'm not really sure. I mean, for them, I feel like since they don't have room scale, being wireless isn't as helpful as it would be with the Vive. So I don't know if that's a good point. I don't know if that has some factors, just in terms of it doesn't seem like it would be as much of I guess a feature that's in demand for that current user base. But I mean, regardless. I think it'll also be interesting just in terms of like figuring out whether it makes sense to add something or not. I mean, the Vive seems like it's a little bit more modular in that sense, in terms of being able to kind of, strap things onto it and take things off. And at least HTC has shown the capacity to do that with some of the products that it's released, like the trackers and, the premium headset and these types of products, showing that they're kind of willing to expand. I mean, other than, the introduction of the touch controllers and technically a third sensor, which I don't really think really caught on, there hasn't really been that same type of movement on the Oculus side. So it might just be one of those things where you see kind of different approaches. more peripherals in one platform versus the other. But yeah, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see, and I think it'll be interesting to see what how these standalone headsets actually do compare to the high end virtual reality systems that are out right now. The Vive and the Rift are kind of in their own in their on their own level right now, along with PlayStation VR, I would say closely behind. So it would be I'd be curious to see whether these standalone products, besides the fact that they'll be all in one, if they really bring anything else to the table other than that. How closely they'll compare to the wired counterparts that we're enjoying today, and then based on that, we might perhaps get a sneak peek on where some of the future of these platforms will go. But yeah, so I mean, I think once we see those headsets come out, we'll kind of get a better sense of whether we think they're actually going to be replacements, and there won't really be a need for figuring out wireless tech, ways of connecting headsets with computers and all of that, or if they really don't, do the sufficient job of replacing a computer. Because if they don't, then I would absolutely imagine, at the very least, the next gen, the Vive 2 or the Rift 2 that's meant to connect to a computer would have to be wireless at that point if people are really used to it, I think. And that's when you would see it integrated. But I don't know. It's interesting stuff.
No, it is. And just to kind of touch upon the other news item for this week, which was almost like a throwaway item that we weren't even sure if we were going to cover, but I think you already kind of alluded to it, but that the standalone headset for the Vive is actually only going to be available for China, is what they're saying initially. There's no price point given, but if you're going to compare that with what Oculus is promising for 2018, next year, with a $200 headset that'll be standalone and have it, inside out tracking and all that, it's going to be tough, at least for us here stateside. I'm not, VR is a worldwide thing, so I'm not going to say that we're at a disadvantage overall, but my thought process, and let's just get a little hypothetical here. And right now, what's the main thing that the Vive has over the Rift, in your opinion?
I mean, the main thing would be the tracking technology and room scale.
The tracking technology and room scale. I agree 100%. That's the answer that I was expecting from you. What if, what if in these Gen 2 models, specifically for Oculus, what if they can both achieve the same level of tracking for, inside out tracking? So therefore they both become somewhat room scale. That levels the playing field quite a bit, which actually has me a little worried, because if Oculus and Facebook can come up with that and offer it at a $200 price point, like what they're announcing, or at least what they're hoping for, I'm not going to say that's a Vive killer, but I'm going to say that it's going to be hard to beat the Vive at that, or it's going to be hard to beat at that point, and try to sell people on an $800 tethered solution that needs to be hooked up to your computer.
Yeah, no, I mean, fair enough. I mean, unless the $800 solution is quite a bit better in terms of, I don't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting, because like you said, that's assuming that everybody gets inside out tracking and is able to do room scale, and if that's the case, I'm not sure that necessarily the price points of all of them will be the same, at that stage. Like, I would imagine Oculus not being able to get the price that low. Perhaps HTC would recognize that they need to be a little bit more competitive when they're releasing new products. So maybe they would try to, they would try to enter the market at a very similar price point. I mean, right now, I think we're seeing, the big disparity between the Vive and the Rift, mainly because, probably HTC doesn't really need to move as many units as Oculus does. I'm not really sure exactly what motivated them to be able to lower it as much as they have been, or what allowed them to do that. I'd probably have to do a little bit more research on that.
You're talking about Oculus, right?
Yeah. And I don't really think that, I haven't really seen anything out there like explaining how they were able to do that. I mean, were they selling the headsets at a huge profit before, and now they're willing to not make so much money on them, or did they find a way to lower costs in manufacturing to the point where they're able to, and is there a way to make the Rift a lot cheaper as opposed to the Vive? These are all questions that I just don't know the answers to. So looking ahead, when new technologies like inside-out tracking and all of that will be available, I think there's just too many factors to know whether the prices would be. I would expect the prices to be more comparable at that point if we were looking at new hardware, but I don't know. Who's to say? So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we don't really know, but can you clarify one thing for me? And I'm just going to plead ignorance right now. When they say inside-out tracking, I mean, is that I would assume that's like no longer tethered to the computer. No, that's no longer like that's. Or I'm sorry. When they say standalone and inside-out tracking, is that kind of interchangeable? I guess.
It's not quite interchangeable. So standalone. I mean, the way I would explain it would be that standalone's referring to, the device itself having the computer or the device within it to power itself. So, like, for example, rather than needing a computer that is connected through wires or a cell phone that's placed in the front of some kind of a mold, this would be an all-in-one unit. So it would basically have all of the components built into the headset to actually run the software. So the way I would describe all-in-one is essentially it's a headset and a device to run the games and the software all built into one unit. And then as far as the tracking, the inside-out tracking goes, that really refers to how it's able to figure out where it is in space, in the room. So you could ostensibly have an all-in-one unit that did not have inside-out tracking, and in order for it to still have like room scale capabilities, for example, you would have the all-in-one unit, but then you would still have to have trackers in the room, and the headset would figure out where it was, based on those trackers. Or in the case of the Rift, vice versa, it would be, you really couldn't have a wireless Rift using its current tracker technology, I don't think.
Gotcha. Okay. No,
because it's the reverse. But like for the Vive, for example, you could have an all-in-one headset, and the headset would just use the lighthouses to figure out where it was in the room. If you have built-in, inside-out tracking, basically what that does is it makes it so you don't have to have the trackers. So the headset is able to, from within, using hardware that it has built into it, is able to basically see the room around it and determine where it is without the need of any kind of external sensors.
Gotcha. Okay, that was actually a fantastic explanation. I never really just thought about it, but every time I see those two concepts together, I would always kind of like use them interchangeably. But the way that you explained it makes a lot more sense now.
Yep. So I suppose HTC could release a Vive, like a version of the Vive that used the lighthouses, but was an all-in-one unit. Like, I could see that possibly being an option for them, but like I said, I don't think Oculus really has that option. So either they lose fidelity and tracking, like they would it would essentially be like one of the old like dev kits where it doesn't really have an out, like I'm trying to think of what the axis is, but it wouldn't have. It basically would just be a lot like a Gear VR in a sense. It wouldn't have any way of knowing where it was in space, or they would use inside-out tracking. It would be a completely different system altogether. So,
gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, I will keep that in mind when doing future readings and research.
Yep.
Appreciate the explanation. Cool, Matt. Well, that's all I had for news. I'm ready to jump into game talk if you are.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. I think we both had played some cool stuff this week. So
Yeah. You want me to go first, or you want to flip a coin? I don't know.
yeah, no, I mean I can go first. And I think you had actually played the game that I played as well. So I mean, we could kind of both jump in and talk about it, or if you want to.
Well, here, fine. Okay, since that's the case, I'll go ahead and go first, and then we can dive into your game afterwards.
Sounds good.
So the game that I played this week was VTOL. VTOL is how it's spelled. I'm not sure if you actually say it out like that, VTOL, but that's just what I've been calling it. VTOL. It stands for Vertical Takeoff and Landing. And if you haven't already figured it out, it is a flight simulator game, and it is seated. So let me start off right off the bat and say that I am not really a fan of either of those. I've never really gotten into the whole flight simulator thing, and when I have a Vive that can do room scale, playing seated experiences have to be really, really awesome in order for me to, come away being like, yeah, that's worth it in VR. And I gotta say, this one kind of changed my mind. VTOL was. It delivered. It's got fantastic reviews all over Steam, and it's. Let me see. The best way that I can describe it, or the game that it reminded me most of, which is another game that we spoke fondly of, both UI and Damon, was Iron Wolf VR. You remember that one?
Yeah, I do actually.
So imagine like Iron Wolf VR, but instead in like flight simulator. And apologies if like all flight simulators are like this, but I was blown away by how intricate it was just to start the freaking plane and to figure out how to take off. I spent a lot of time in the tutorials and messing around and playing the game really, and just kind of getting a feel for it. But I was actually very surprised and pleasantly surprised at how much I was enjoying. Like I didn't realize how much time I'd spent in the game by the time I got out after my first session, and that was really just going back and forth, trying the missions, just going for like free flights and things like that. But I was definitely impressed, and so I can actually say that I would recommend this for anybody who is looking for a cool seated experience, because I don't know that I've come across many that I've been very happy with or that I've enjoyed. But then again, the disclaimer on that is that I don't play many of those, so I'd love to be able to get your take on it at some point. But
yeah, no, I'll have to try it out. I mean, in the past, like there have been other games that, I mean, granted, I haven't played any like hardcore flight sim type games, and I know that VTOL, since it does use the Vive controllers, you don't need like a HOTAS or anything like that. I know we were talking to Damon about that because he has that set up going for him with different types of games, but it's definitely one that I could try out. So I would like to try it to see what I think. Because for some people, especially, I mean, I wouldn't say that I am particularly sensitive or anything, but I do prefer being able to move around as opposed to having to sit down just because of the nausea factor. Not that I'm like overly sensitive, but I just feel a little bit more comfortable when I'm able to move around versus when I have to just be moving around with a stick or with some other type of feedback. But I'll give it a shot to see what I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned the nausea factor, because not that I was expecting any, or I actually didn't even think about it before throwing the headset on. But after getting out, or while I was in it, I was surprised that I didn't feel anything. And well, let me I guess dig in a little bit deeper here, because when I was flying the plane, every time I was inside the cockpit, I didn't feel anything. It actually felt kind of cool because I was able to look around and feel like I still had that sense of presence of being inside the plane, but just seated and strapped to the pilot seat. Mm-hmm. The only time I had any type of nausea factor was when I pulled the eject lever and I'd be thrown out and kind of just out in random space or whatever that I was, and falling to the ground. Which of course, come on, when you're in a flight simulator game, you got to do that a couple times just because you have to. And so like I said, I didn't realize that I didn't have any nausea until I'd pull the eject lever. So not that really has much to do in the game. Maybe it does, but I haven't really used it, or I haven't gotten to a point in the game where I've needed to really use it. It's just nice that they have it there because it feels natural, or it feels like it's authentic. But diving a little bit more into the game itself, there's a fantastic set of tutorials that actually give you the the step-by-step is what I'm looking for, like actual step-by-step on how to start the plane, all of the actual mechanics of putting the landing gear down, putting the landing gear up, changing the flaps. It's actually very technical, and I know, like I said, I'm comparing it to Iron Wolf because it reminded me so much of that game in that way. And so kudos to the guys who put it together.
Yeah, those are good things to be able to compare yourself to as far as Lone Wolf goes. So that actually makes me really, really excited to try it out.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I've never flown a plane before, obviously, and I've never had an interest in piloting, but being there in the pilot's chair, going through, and then like having my first successful takeoff. My first successful takeoff wasn't too bad. It was my first successful landing, where I remember, palm sweaty, like I crashed like 3 or 4 times before. And when I finally got it, I was like, oh my God, it was thrilling in a sense, as thrilling as that could be. But there's this certain sense of accomplishment because it's much harder than it seems. And, it's what they talk about what they were talking about at the beginning of VR. And I think people would always talk about like the table tennis games, or even just like the tennis games and things like that. And it's just like the simple things that you would actually do in life. And I'm not saying that, piloting is a simple thing, but the actions are relatively simple. Even, it's like turning on levers in a certain, or turning on buttons in a certain order, moving the joystick in a certain way, having the flaps come out or, change to level 1 or 2, and raising the landing gear. It's like the little things like that really just give you that immersive feel in the game. And like I said, after going through the tutorial several times and getting that landing, it was that sense of accomplishment. And I got out of the game having enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. And I did go in with an open mind, but like I said, seated experiences, flight sims weren't necessarily my thing before this. But I know that VTOL is definitely a game that I will be spending some time in afterwards, or at least, from here on out. And because it seems like they are adding a lot to the game as well. I'll be honest, I don't think I even made it through the first level, and that's mainly because I didn't know where exactly to go, but also I just really enjoyed flying and kind of being free up in the air. So if that can be a compliment in another way, I mean, you still have to complete the missions, I'm sure, but like I said, I was just having a lot of fun enjoying the mechanics of the game itself. You know what I mean?
No, that makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, that's all I really have on it. I'd love to get your thoughts on it at some point, but
yeah,
like I said before,
I'll have to play it soon.
Yeah, no, like I said before, for anybody out there who's looking for a cool flight sim game, I think it's going to be hard to top this one, especially with the devs working on a lot of really cool content in the future. So, that being said, I'm ready for you.
Yeah, so the game I played was Gunheart, and I know you had played it as well. So maybe we could kind of tag team this one and kind of talk about both of our experiences together. But I really liked what I was able to play. In the time that I spent with it. Essentially, Gunheart is it's a cooperative multiplayer type game where you're able to get in with your friends and go through shooting up aliens and generally having a good time. So the things that I would praise about the game first and foremost would be its sense of atmosphere, just in terms of, I mean, from the beginning you turn on the game, you're in a lobby area that really feels like you're in a real place. And even though I didn't necessarily get a great sense of what the overlying story was from the time I spent, I mean, granted, I had about probably an hour or so, with the game prior to our talk today. I definitely want to spend more time on it just to get my feet wet a little bit more. But I just, like I said, from booting it up, you just get the sense that everything has a cohesive feel to it, and it has a great sense of place, and that kind of carried on from that lobby system where you're in kind of you're in some kind of an installation, some kind of a base where you feel like there's some consistency there to actually going out into your mission. And then once you're in the mission, I really like the sense of movement. So it's just it's a teleportation movement system. Nothing too crazy there, but compared to most games, I felt like I was covering quite a bit of ground in the level that I played. So it wasn't just going back and forth like some games that come to mind when I'm talking about this, and I don't want to. It's possible that they've changed the maps or updated them since then, but like a game like Quiver, for example, where sure you're moving from kind of location to location within the level in order to hit certain markers, whatever. But in that sense, in those kind of games, you feel like you're going back and forth within one kind of fixed environment. Whereas in Gunheart, I really felt like the game started me in one location, but then in order to actually go through the mission, I had to move to cover quite a bit of ground. So I was teleporting from platform to platform to platform to eventually find where my other teammates were, and to kind of meet up with them so that we could continue through killing the bad guys, collecting the items that were in the level, and eventually taking out kind of bigger bosses and that sort of thing. So I liked that. I like that sense of progression in the environment, because I like I said, it's immersive in the sense that it combines room scale in that you can move around, but because you're teleporting and you're not really going back to the same spots in the level design over and over again, you kind of lose yourself in terms of the environment, because you do feel like you're constantly moving forward, constantly seeing new things. So you start to lose yourself in your own living room, and you start to just kind of buy into the fact that you're in this other space within the game world. So I like that. The shooting mechanics and all that stuff, I wouldn't say that there was anything like particularly that stood out to me there. I did think that the aiming was kind of a good balance of making it easy, but at the same time, it didn't feel like it was taking away too much control from you. So like there was a sense that it was kind of auto aiming, especially at distances. But then it gave you a reticle and kind of also helped you so that you felt like you were actually the one, zooming in on what you were trying to shoot at, and being a general badass in that regard. So those are just some of my takes. I don't know, what was your experience like when you got a chance to play it?
Well, just quickly to piggyback on the gun mechanics or aiming. I don't know if you had a chance, but did you ever put the two guns together?
I did not.
Oh.
I noticed that I was able, I noticed that there were sections of it that were kind of like coming off, and it looked like you could do that, but no, I didn't do it.
It's not even. I don't think it has anything to do with like whatever gun you have. But if you put both controllers together, it turns into this like minigun that you can use, which I had a lot of fun with. But that's a quick little. I don't want to say quick little, but it's a cool little tidbit that I feel like they made use of, and it's something unique to this game, at least from what I've seen so far.
Just curious, how did you figure out to do that? Like, was there something I missed, or?
No, you know what? I think I watched the trailer beforehand, actually, and I just saw them do it in the trailer, and then like while I was in the game, kind of testing things out, it just kind of happened, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is, I remember this. I didn't go into it thinking like, okay, put the controllers together, but as soon as I did it, it clicked, and I was like, oh, I remember that from the trailers now, type of moment.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I mean that is one thing. Like, I mean, when you mentioned that, again, I could be wrong because I didn't spend a ton of time with the game or anything, but I didn't see any kind of easy to like I remember at the beginning you could kind of within the lobby system you could ping things in order to like have some brief tutorial type text dialogues and that sort of thing. So maybe some of that stuff is in those places, but in general, the game is so polished and it is such kind of a high level that I was kind of surprised that it lacked even the most basic of like those types of automated tutorial systems. So again, I could be missing it and maybe there was a way, but like I'm surprised that it even let me get away with that. For some people, that's probably great, and I think some people are going to praise it for that because they didn't have to. One thing I will say, I was able to get in and play a real mission like pretty darn quick, without having to worry about any of that stuff. But at the same time, like, I would have liked to know that I was able to do that, and if they were trying to tell me that, I must have missed it. So.
Gotcha. I remember the tutorial. I kind of just skipped over because that's just a bad habit of mine. Unless I was just talking about how the flight simulator had a great tutorial, but that's because I needed it. But with a lot of these other games, like I kind of just like to plug and play, just go in and figure it out as I go along. But what else was I gonna say? Oh, you mentioned how like big the levels were, and I think that's a great point. There's definitely this sense of scale and progression that you get when you're going through the levels, which is nice because a lot of other games. I'm not saying that they're lacking in any regards, and I'm not going to call out any games specifically, but what made this game just feel like a bigger game overall was the fact that the levels that you were going through seemed like they had so much more. There were these like big sets, and granted, like you're using teleportation to get around, which I know some people aren't fans of, but I'm indifferent at this point. I actually like teleportation because it allows me to traverse like great spaces like that at a quick speed, but without without any. I don't want to say no. I wasn't even going to say nausea, but like it allows me to like explore big levels like that without there being the time necessary to actually walk every single step. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for a game like this, I felt like it worked really well. I'm not sure if they'll be adding in locomotion at some point, but for right now, teleportation works well for me and for people who enjoy it. Like I think you'll enjoy the game just because it's. Like I said, that sense of scale is really cool. And the other thing that you mentioned was the ping. Because these levels are kind of gigantic in a sense, it's nice to have that little ping button because it actually tells you like where to go, where your friends are, your like multiplayers, your teammates, where they're at. And so right now, I think I don't know if there's like I didn't see any like multiplayer like player versus player. Like it seemed like. It's just like they can join you in the level, which is pretty cool.
I vaguely remember seeing something about a PvP option when I was like starting the mission. But that said, I didn't see how to activate it and I don't really know what that would actually be like when you're playing the game. So that is maybe something like I might be misremembering, but I do think I saw something like that just because. I remember when I was trying to figure out how I should load up the first mission, I was kind of looking around, just like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And I vaguely remember seeing something like that, but yeah, I didn't get a chance to really. And I mean, me personally, I kind of have more fun with the cooperative stuff anyway. So. Yeah,
no, me too. And so the nice thing, and I'm not sure if you maybe can shed a light on this, but like for me, like I just jumped into a game. Like there were people in the lobby, but I wasn't interested in mingling at that point. Like I just wanted to kind of jump into the game, see what it was all about. And so I jumped into a game, and maybe 4 or 5 minutes into the level, I got actually startled because I heard someone else's voice, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And then I found out that someone else had just jumped into the level as well and was catching up to where I was. And I liked that just because it made it easier to have a multiplayer experience. And like I said, it's not that I was avoiding a multiplayer experience. I was just trying to get into a game. But I like the ease of which like people can just join in, because in several other levels that I was doing after that, like I jump in and there were already people in the level, or vice versa. And so that was nice because, I mean, at the end of the day, you're fighting these creepy little bug-looking aliens and that like to sneak up on you when you're looking the other way.
Kind of.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a fantastic comparison, actually. But when those things get up close to you, it's a little I don't know, it's a little unnerving. Yeah. I just didn't like them all like up in my face. But it's nice having some backup because I remember I was going through a level by myself at some point, and it's just like there was 2 different ways that I could go, and every time like I'd start walking one way, like these guys would sneak up on me from the other side, and I'd turn around and be like, oh gosh, what the hell, trying to play it cool. But then a couple minutes later, some people joined in, and we kind of took both pathways and had each other's back. So again, another reason to show why multiplayer in VR is cool as hell.
Well, I think that's a good place to end, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really like the game. I would recommend it. It's been highly rated. I know that there were some people talking about, some reviews weren't as generous, but after playing it, I'm a fan of the game, and like I said, I think the biggest thing that I really enjoy is the sense of scale when it comes to these levels. I think I might have gotten a little bit further along in the storyline than you did, but it's not, it's no, I don't think anybody's going to play the game necessarily for the storyline. And I'm sorry if the devs end up listening. I'm not bashing. I'm just saying, like, I think the game itself is cool enough to play without the storyline, but there is one there that you kind of follow along, but I don't think it's necessary, completely necessary for you to understand it in order to enjoy the game. In fact, I don't think you need to know what's going on to enjoy the game at all.
Very cool.
Cool, Matt. Well, with that, let's go ahead and end this here. We made it through the episode. I'm surprised.
Man, yeah, one down, I guess, and I actually have a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to playing for next week. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
Anyways.
Cool, Matt. Well, enjoy your weekend. For everybody listening, please enjoy your weekend as well. Stay safe, stay warm, unless it's too hot. I don't know. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're doing well. It's summer in the U.S., so we're doing our best to stay warm and enjoy the weather here. But yeah, man, take care. And for everybody listening, tune in next week, and we'll talk to you guys again very, very soon.